Hello and welcome to Fireplace Conversations, the place where we continue to break down the issues that we are discussing currently. Of course, if you've been tracking with us, you know we've been talking about business unusual, and we've also been discussing the role of the worker. That is our current focus, because we said routine is over, but work is really just beginning. We also said that we're in a season where the sons of God become relevant, because what the world wants is actually what we already carry.
Right.
So I'll just ask Richard and George to share a few thoughts so far at where we are. What are some of the things that have come up in this discussion?
Right. Yes. I think last week was very, very powerful. And I think we were able to see certain things that we never even knew that they could work. Because number one, one of them is on issues of the way Babylon takes that which is kingdom and then executes it, and then they get the result, and then you find the church or people who are a part of the church, they are not able to see that connectivity. They don't understand that principles are principles. Where principles, no matter who executes them or no matter who does what the principle says, get the result. And therefore we are here locked in a place where we usually think that, you know what, this can only apply to us. But you see, principles are principles, and therefore the world may not necessarily mention and say, or give some churchy language to what they do. But when you look at it closely, you realize that is actually a kingdom principle. And for me, that is a call for the church. That you know what, there is no way that the world can be able to be taking these things and executing them, and then we are here, we're just doing church.
There you go.
That for me was very powerful.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because I'll also pick up from where Richard started it off. That Babylon has excelled so much in fulfilling its mandate. They're successful in what they do. Because I believe that when Babylon operates, they do not operate with half-mindedness. They know exactly what the results they want, and they go for it. And because Babylon is a mixture of kingdom and the world, some of the principles that they use attract the church. And that's why you find some churches calling Babylon to come and teach them the very principles that Babylon is supposed to be learning from us. So it's like someone coming to describe you to you. You know? So especially last night's conversation, it really opened up who we are as sons and the approach with which we should be able to approach the world with in order to get maximum results.
Exactly. Okay. Good. No, for me now, I'm listening to George and what he is saying, and therefore a question comes to my mind. Now, here we are, we're kingdom people. There is the world out there. And therefore, how do we blend in? Remember, we are still in the world. We are still functioning in the world. How do we blend these kingdom principles and operate in Babylon without necessarily being mixed up? And is there a biblical example that we can be able to look at as a case study and really help us to see how that functions?
I think one of the things we will always say is that we almost have an advantage and a disadvantage as readers of the Bible. An advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage we have is we see everything in past tense.
Oh, yes.
Okay? So we kind of think all those things were happening at the same time. Because we have the privilege of jumping from Genesis to somewhere else, and not really being resident long enough to get the weight of what was going on part time. And the reason these people are such a big deal is that because they didn't have what we had, yet they did what they did. That puts us in a predicament. Now, for example, to bring that picture into play, we said the other day, when you read the book of Leviticus, when they were being given laws, they're not being given laws to learn. They're being given laws to live. And the laws were contemporary laws. They were told how to plant, they were told how to marry, they were told how to trade, they were told, if you go and read Leviticus, it is practical living. up to hygiene.
Yes, that's true.
It's like the constitution today.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had health issues, they had every other issue was covered.
Yes.
And you have to separate the difference from certain laws that says when you enter the land. That means these things will be applicable
when you enter the land.
When you enter the land.
Right.
So there are so many laws, including spiritual laws, including going to the priest in office.
Yes.
And it's interesting, if you're very a keen reader of Leviticus, you will notice they were appointed to a priest in office to the place where God chose to place his name.
That's right.
They were not directed to a geographical location.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
They were not directed to a particular, there was no temple built.
That time.
So the understanding was there will be a spiritual posture
Yes.
of a person to go listen to. And yet all those laws were concluded. Now why am I saying that? To then explain to you how to interpret people like Daniel. Because Daniel is able to function in laws without a location.
Right.
Remember? Daniel is able to go into Jerusalem, into Babylon, and to function in such a way that he can be described.
Yes.
The way we described him the other day, but he's in Babylon.
Right.
It is not him acting in the temple.
Yes. There was no temple in Babylon at that time.
So how do you describe a man in whom the spirit of the gods in, and you can only describe him as, he says, your father the king asked him to be in charge of government.
Yes.
And these were the reasons. Because he had this excellent spirit.
Yes.
So do you see the description of the environment of function?
Yes.
Well, let's look at, the Bible is always full of witnesses. Let's look at another witness. Another witness is called Joseph.
Right.
Yes.
Right? In Genesis 41, you find a discussion where Joseph has just interpreted the king's dream.
Yes.
Interesting. And has broken down. Remember what was Daniel described as in the last discussion? One who can decode enigmas, mysteries, dreams. Joseph, same.
The same thing.
He has just also interpreted a king's dream. All right?
Yes.
But the interpretation of king's dreams always had to do with practicality.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was not something that was just out there that you just say, you know,
Exactly.
I saw this or I saw that, but
Yes.
it has no practicality in it.
That was the idea.
Yes.
So now, Pharaoh has listened to Joseph's breakdown.
Yes.
And this is what Pharaoh says. So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh.
So which verse is that?
That is verse 37.
Right.
Genesis 41, 37.
Okay.
So the advice, whatever Joseph explained,
Yes.
was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Now, first of all, can we agree that they are not spiritual people?
No. He's not speaking to spiritual people.
Yeah, he's not speaking.
So the advice must be what?
It was very
It
practical.
must be very practical.
Thank
yes.
you.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the head of government. It's
Yes.
like saying the advice was good to the president and the cabinet.
Yes.
Interesting.
All right? But here's the response of Pharaoh.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God?
Wow. Okay.
Pharaoh speaking.
Yeah.
Describing Joseph's practical explanation is one in whom is the Spirit.
Of God.
Do you realize to all these nations there was no separation?
No.
Interesting.
You could not function in rulership without
The Spirit of God.
So the question that I probably would like to ask in this conversation is this. Now, in today's world,
yes,
anytime there is a crisis in government
yes,
and spiritual leaders are called forth,
exactly.
they do not come forth to give wisdom.
Thank you.
They are only called to prayer, right?
Yes.
Or to come and sanitize the environment
Yes.
in a very spooky way.
Yeah.
But they're not expected to
Yes.
give any logical explanation or any logical solution to what is happening.
No.
Now, this is an interesting one. It's good you raised it. It's something that I normally don't like talking much about, but I think it is important.
Yeah.
This will sound odd, but listen carefully. If it's the president speaking or a governor, whoever, we're talking about the Kenyan context and different nations.
Yes.
Then you call a pastor to come and pray. Actually, that is the wrong way around. You should tell him to pray where he is.
Come with
And
us.
come and tell you the solution of what he prayed.
Let me tell you.
I think that's true.
There is. This has been the mentality, and especially where either a pastor or somebody
Yes.
who is considered a spiritual person is involved.
Yes.
That now, when you come and pray,
Yes.
there are certain things you will move in the spirit.
Yes.
That will move certain things in the natural.
Yes.
But the thing is, there has not been that expression of your prayer
Yes.
in the natural. It always has been spiritual thing, but there's no manifestation.
Here's my challenge.
Right.
Pastor, man of God, you've gone before these people. They've asked you to pray. Has any agenda changed after you prayed, or did they continue the agenda?
Exactly.
Good question. That's a good question.
Very good question.
Yes.
Because if you're here to pray, there should be no agenda till you're done.
Oh,
Yes. And your prayer should probably change the agenda that had been
Exactly.
planned.
Oh, yeah.
So you pray, then whatever was supposed to happen continues happening.
Exactly.
As if your prayer was not supposed to change anything there.
So majority of our prayers, in this context, are usually used as sanitizers.
Exactly.
You know, you sanitize before you want to do something.
Yes.
So you're here to give credibility to the activity.
Exactly.
You're here to give endorsement
You're endorsing something.
of the activity. You're here to agree with them, not them to agree with you.
Isn't that?
In fact, if you come, listen,
Yes.
if you come and say something that is contrary to the agenda that is on the table,
Yes.
you'll be thrown out.
Exactly. Next time they won't invite
They won't,
you.
yes. Yeah.
And you are also you want to be invited next time.
Exactly.
So you really have to be careful what you say.
Let me tell you, there are places where this has happened in nations and we've turned down those opportunities for a simple reason. We'd rather be invisible and speak to the leader behind the scenes and give advice that will change people than to be visible and get a nice photo to be famous. Doesn't make sense. That's not how the kingdom works. That is why the prophets of old did not come to pray before the king. They came to the king to give him direction because they were done.
They had already
They had
prayed
heard
before.
from God.
Yes.
They would appear and say, this is what the Lord says. Past tense. They were not seeking the Lord to say. The Lord had already said by the time they came to speak.
That's right. Now, the thing is, how do we change this order? Because now, we're looking at that and listening to that explanation, definitely there is a deficit somewhere.
Yes.
And especially when it comes now to the so-called spiritual leaders or the so-called church kingdom people.
Yes.
How do we change that narrative?
Okay, it starts first of all where we started the other day.
Yes.
When we talked about emotional
Intelligence.
intelligence. Emotional intelligence, people, is 1 Corinthians 13. Simple terms. God is love. We know that. Now, love is patient, kind. Go check all those things. If you break them down, you'll find those things are supposed to be our character and nature.
Right.
So before we can even begin to advise anybody, they have to believe that we have the best interest of everybody at heart.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's where it starts. It's not about fame. It's not about I'm a man of God and what I say must happen. No, it's not necessary. Ask Jonah. God sent him. God tell him, go and prophesy to Nineveh.
Yeah.
Go tell them if they don't turn from their ways, this calamity will hit them.
Yeah.
And he prophesied and they turned from their ways.
Yeah.
And the calamity didn't hit them. Of course, it came much later because they again turned back.
Yes.
But at that time, people would have called him a false prophet.
Oh, yeah.
Because God's intent was not calamity.
It wasn't.
God's intent was repentance. So where it starts, we have to start from the place and we have to grow. We don't start by advising government. We start by advising people.
Okay.
Yeah, people around you. Do people's lives change? Because for Joseph to have arrived there, for Daniel to have arrived there, there had already been a track record.
Oh, yeah. He was in Potiphar's house.
Yes.
Yes.
He was in charge of something in jail.
In fact, by the time he came before him, there was a reference.
Oh, yeah.
They said, there's a man I know, let me bring him to you. He interprets dreams.
Yes.
There was a record.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And what he had done before had been proven.
Oh.
And I think something else that stands out for me is that remember all these old kings?
Yes.
They had seers.
Yes.
They had people who could, using their own divine ways or using their own spiritual ways, they had people who could see to some level in the extent, in the spirit.
Yes.
So when you come in as a son of God, you have to bring in a perspective that goes beyond the seer
Yes.
that the king is used to.
Yes.
But now we are seeing in the world that people who are coming to kings now are even worse than even the people that the king knows in the natural environment.
Now, talking about that and looking at Joseph, now we have said that Joseph had a track record. Now, in the track record, whatever that the people had recommended him said that there is a man who did 1, 2, 3, wherever he was at that point.
Yes.
Now, the thing is now, bringing it out to the environment that we're in right now, Now, does it mean, for example, if I'm a man of God? Because if you look at the current caliber of men of God or people that claim or they want to speak to government or to leaders, they come now with the profile of your spiritual profile. Now, if you look at Joseph, it was not just a spiritual profile.
No, it's a practical.
There was a practical profile too.
Yes.
Now, the thing is now, how then, at this point, these are people, they are men of God. And the only thing that they showcase is what they claim they hear from God.
Okay.
Now,
Now I have a radical departure from how this is done.
Yes.
You realize at the time Daniel went before Pharaoh, there were prophets in Babylon.
Before Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes. Do you know there were prophets?
Yes.
Do you know, what is his name? Ezra was there.
Oh, yes.
Do you know all the other prophets were there? They had all been carried together.
Yes.
They were there.
Yes.
Why didn't they go before the king?
Mm.
Here's the problem. If you want to speak with the king, don't come from the pulpit.
Okay. All right.
Because he has already prejudged you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you want to speak to the king, come from a kingly direction. It is Nebuchadnezzar who agrees, the queen who agrees the Spirit of God is in this man.
Yes.
It is Pharaoh who says the Spirit of God is in this man. He didn't come that I come from God.
He does not come with a CV.
No.
So what does that tell us? It tells us that, fine, I'm not saying it is not impossible, but do you have a king who so honors your pulpit grace that he will listen? Now here's the problem. Many times he won't if he's your benefactor.
Yeah.
Here's the catch-22.
Yes.
If you read the book of 2 Kings 5:26,
Yes.
a strange encounter has happened. Naaman has just been healed by Elisha.
Yes.
And look at what Naaman does, just to show you how kings operate and how nations operate and how the kingdom should understand itself.
Yes.
We know Elisha is a man of God.
Yes.
We know that. And that's not the issue. Naaman is informed by his servant that he can get healing in Israel. Where does Naaman go? Naaman goes to the king. Why would you go to the king? Because you think in Israel the person in charge is a king.
Right.
The king doesn't want to deal with him and sends him to Elisha. Elisha refuses to go see him. Look at the protocols. Yet this is a senior man who has to come through protocol. It's been sent by one king to another king. Look at the rank of Naaman. So it's governmental in function.
Right.
So as the king sends him to the king, the king says, I can't handle it. But the king is told by Elisha, send him to me. In other words, what he wants to deal with is in my rank.
Oh, yeah.
When he comes, we know the backstory, we know the story of dipping and everything. This is not the issue. The issue is when he leaves, he offers to pay. This is very important if you want to speak to kings.
Yes.
All right? He offers to pay. Elisha tells him, no, I'll not receive anything from you. You go. All right? While he is going, we know the story. Gehazi follows him.
Yes.
And we know the story. Gehazi comes up with a story and collects.
Yes.
When Gehazi comes back, Elisha asks him a very strange question. He says, was not my spirit with you was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you?
Yeah.
Is this the time to take money or to accept clothes or olive groves or vineyards or flocks or herds or male or female slaves? Why is he making it such a big deal? The guy just received some money.
Yeah.
But the key issue here is this the time? The kairos, the season. There is a time we don't receive.
So that means now I'm looking at that situation, that story.
Yes.
Now, does it mean that there's nothing wrong with receiving?
Yes.
It was the timing.
The timing and the setup. This setup dilutes what has just happened.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because the minute we receive, he paid for it. But if he goes without paying, we've raised a superior structure that allows us to influence that environment.
So that means then that if then he pays, he will consider what has been done to him as something he earned.
Actually, what you've just told him, we are not different from the world.
That's correct.
You've just told him they pay for things, we pay for things.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that when we carry this dynamic and you want to speak into influence, you cannot have a string attached. You cannot, when it is time to advise, a leader of our nation is not the time to receive anything from that leader.
That's right.
So how does this come to work without character, without integrity?
Actually, that's where I was going.
Because we described Daniel, for example.
Yes.
Right? And how he was described.
Yes.
Right? Now, the other example is of Joseph.
Yes.
Because we see all these examples in the Bible, which point us to, some principles that guide us to, on how we should live in our life today.
Exactly. Right. Now, let's take exactly that.
Yes.
Right? And let's bring it in.
Yes.
Because this applies anywhere.
Yes.
This means if you're in a company and you want to influence change, don't do it because of pay.
Oh, wow.
Do you see the power of the same principle? Well, that is not on the pulpit.
Yes.
In other words, prophets are called to talk to kings.
Yes.
So if they want to talk to kings, they should not focus on prophets.
Yes.
The day that to receive from the king is not the day they spoke. It's the day the king came to honor.
Right.
It has no connection with the day of speaking.
Yes. 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 Yes.
You understand the difference?
Yes.
And that's why Saul understands protocol.
Yes.
When he wants to go before
Samuel,
what does he say? I can't go to him empty-handed. Understanding rank, knowing that I can't just show up. He didn't summon me. This is not God calling. This is me wanting to go.
Now, I'm just thinking about something that you mentioned, the issue of character.
Yes.
The issue of character and skill, because that is something we spoke last time.
Yes.
And where we say, there has to be the issue of us developing a character.
Yes.
And that character is, of course, based upon the emotional intelligence dynamics that we just mentioned, and the skill. Now, how does that blend?
Now that is the biggest issue. And of course, this coming week will really focus on skill. But let me just bring in the preliminary around it.
Yes.
Skill can only take you as far as your character goes.
Right.
Skill can only take you
as far as your character goes. Now, when I make that statement, if I now say a few things, everybody will know what I mean. All right? How many of you know people who are very good at something, but you can't give it to them?
Yes.
This guy can fix anything, but I'm not giving him another job.
Because
he's good at what he does. But
does he not have skill?
Yes.
Yeah. He does have the skill.
But what is the problem?
He lacks the character.
Character is what carries the skill. The pattern, the picture we use is the picture of the dove. We say the dove has 9 feathers on each wing.
Yes.
And the picture, why is the dove a picture usually in scripture? Is because of the 9 gifts of the Spirit and the 9 fruit of the Spirit.
Yes.
And the whole idea is that to have full flight, you need you can't fly on one wing.
You need the balance.
Yes. Now the problem we normally have, the church has been flying on one wing, character only, with no skill.
No skill.
So
we teach character,
you become
we teach character.
utterly irrelevant.
In fact, every sermon is character. Every single sermon, but there is no sermon on
skills.
So that is already stunted growth. Then the world teaches
skills. No character.
That is why no matter how they excel, they crash.
And that is why now when I look at that situation, what I see is that now there is character on this one. Then you become irrelevant.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, you have so much skill. You say, for example, you're a good doctor, but you're corrupt.
Exactly.
You're a good lawyer, you're corrupt.
There you go.
I mean, that's
now do you see the gap where the sons of God step in?
That's right.
Yes.
Sons of God are ambidextrous.
Oh, yeah.
That is another word for Melchizedek.
Yes.
King and priest.
Yes.
I can wield both arms simultaneously.
Yes.
Without any, in any sport, anybody who can use 2 hands is dangerous.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Or 2 feet.
Yes, it's dangerous because you can't tell which side he'll come from. And that's why Jesus is Son of God and Son of Man. Do you understand the difference?
Interesting combination.
Yes, and that is why as a child, I said the child grew and had favor. He grew in knowledge, in wisdom, and in favor with God and man. 2 dynamics. So when you understand that combination, then you'll see where we have a problem. For example, gifts are gifts, character are character. Even in the fivefold. I can have a prophetic gift, but I have no character. And that's what Paul is trying to tell you in Corinthians when he starts. Even though I speak with the tongues of men, gift.
Yes.
And of angels,
Yes.
gift.
Yes.
And I can prophesy
Yes.
all things without
Without
love.
love.
I am a noisy gong.
Yes.
Do you see the
Yes.
balance?
That's right.
So
Yes.
the power of movement, God expects us to grow character and to sharpen skill.
Okay. We don't leave one
Yes.
unattended.
Yes.
Yes.
That is why even the mighty men of Gideon would drink water with their hand on the sword.
Oh yeah. Those are very powerful pictures.
You see, those are the pictures
Yes.
of who is going to be important in this season.
Yes.
Because there are some people who are hired in companies, and for a long time it didn't matter. As long as the guy delivers, he can treat people the way he likes.
Yeah.
He can misbehave. I remember many years ago when we began our IT company, we were outsourcing a graphic designer for some work. But that guy, every time we had work, I had to sit with him till he finishes. Because once he has one drink, he's gone. Yet he was the most skilled graphic designer you've ever met.
Yeah.
So you see, these are common things.
Oh yeah. I'm just trying to look at right now where we are.
Yes.
Now, because what we are speaking about is the
Yes.
ideal position.
Yes.
Now, where we are, let me just say generally as a
Yep.
church,
Yes.
is where now, like we said, we have emphasized character so much
Yes.
such that we've missed out on skill.
Yes.
And even if we are to quantify the skills that we can say that we possess, it is not enough or it is not much that it can have impact in the world.
Yes.
And therefore now these are people in the church, and we are saying, you know what, you need also to acquire skills, because again, remember, we have come from environments or in places where we say, you know what, there is so much skill that is needed, then we end up now acquiring Babylon, and bringing it into this place,
Yes.
and then we end up now being swallowed up.
Yes.
So that when we function,
Yes.
we are functioning actually as Babylonians.
Yes, you see,
Yes.
now this is the catch.
Yes.
If you have skill with no character,
Yeah.
there's no vacuum. You have another character.
Yes.
Okay? Now that character that comes with the skills of Babylon is where the problem now lies. Who is a conman? Is a highly intelligent, analytical, sharp, observant human being.
Yes.
He can read body language.
Yes.
He understands psychology.
Yes. Yeah.
He may never have gone to school.
Yes.
He knows when to push what.
Yes.
But what buttons does he push?
Yes.
He has learned to push the buttons of fear,
Yes.
the buttons of
Panic.
of panic, and
Yes.
the buttons of urgency,
Yeah.
And urgency.
and quick fixes.
Yes.
So he has got skill,
Yes.
Yeah.
absolute skill. In fact, people who get confident said, somewhere I felt like maybe this is not working, but the guy mastered skill. He read you and adjusted.
Oh yeah.
So that tells you how that world works.
Yes.
Now, the kingdom now comes to another place where he says, now we are changing the model. That what now controls my skill, yes, I will sharpen my skill,
Yes.
but my skill will be subject to my character.
Yes.
Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Yes, I'll sharpen my skill, but my skill has to be subject to my character. In other words, remember the statement I think we ended our last conversation with?
Yes.
Is it right or is it wise?
Very interesting.
That's a new upgrade.
That's
We're no
right.
longer dealing with right and wrong. We're dealing with right and wise.
Yes.
An example I like using in that context is a kingdom judge. You know, we have judges
Yes.
today.
Yes.
And when judges sit, they'll make decisions. And their decisions normally, and this is maybe a lesson Kenyans should learn because we also have issues with how judgments are made.
Yes.
Yeah.
An issue we should learn that judgment, when you have a constitution,
Yeah.
like the Kenyan constitution, our constitution, the Bible, the Kenyan constitution starts by saying, we the people.
Right.
What does that tell you? It is about us,
Yes.
for us,
Yes.
and whatever. We haven't defined who us is.
Yes.
So us could be us in our most ethnic position,
Yeah.
us in our most fallen position. It is just about
Us.
us.
Yes.
Now, once we create that law, suddenly we want everybody subject to that law that we
I've created.
came up with.
Yes.
Now, the problem with that law is that some people, because we are human, depending on the framers, they may have envisioned who to be benefited
Yeah.
and who not to be benefited, depending on what caused it. Because many constitutions are made in reaction, not in foresight.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
If it was made in foresight, it's different.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why God didn't allow us to make our own constitution. He gave us one.
Yeah.
In other words, I created you, I know how you function, and I know how you malfunction.
Yes.
So I'll give you the rules to help you function versus the ones that will stop your malfunction.
Yes.
Now, once that is done, a decision, a proper judge is supposed to sit and look not at the Constitution, but at the spirit of the Constitution.
Yes.
Those are two very different things.
Yes. Right. Yes.
That is why sometimes we get offended when a judge makes a decision. Because he may have applied the spirit of the Constitution. But to us, everything is black and white. It doesn't make sense anymore. So, let's take a scenario. If you're a kingdom judge and two brothers come before you and they're fighting over land, all right? And the dispute is so bad that one wants to take land from his brother. Remember when they came to Jesus with the same thing, he says, who made me judge over you? You get the difference? The issue is this. The judge can sit and rule according to the law. Because maybe as a father, I preferred my younger son to my older son. And so I gave, because my older son refused to obey me. He misbehaved, he did whatever. So now when I died in my will, I gave all the land to my younger son. Now the younger son has gone to court because he's arguing that he's my son. But the older son says, but my father said, give it to me. So the judge can rule by the law and say, the younger son take it, older son go away. That is by the law, and it's a fair judgment. Or he can rule by the kingdom, by the spirit, and say, guys, this is not about land, this is about brothers. Go first and be reconciled with your brother. Then let's come and talk about land when you two are what?
Reconciled.
Do you see the difference right there? What is that? Emotional intelligence. Sitting, and that's what Solomon was dealing with.
And for me, when we look at the kingdom from that point of view, it now tells you the dangers of calling Babylon to come and teach us their ways.
There you go.
Because if skill and character go together, and they teach you how to do something, what are they teaching you?
Exactly.
They're actually teaching you their character and their skill.
Meaning,
we will have one large environment which will be subdivided into church, world, but it's all the same environment. And that's why, for now, it is very, very important for sons to emerge who can make this difference.
Exactly. I'm just trying to think about now the aspect of profitableness. And now, since we spoke last time that a kingdom venture, there has to be a show profitability. You're not just doing things for the sake of it. Now, there is something that you said that, you know what, when you do something from the perspective of the kingdom, profit is not the first thing that you think about. Now, that is so opposite of what Babylon teaches and what most people have learned. And therefore, they know that anytime I'm engaged in something and I am engaged in this thing or in this business or in this consultancy, there is the aspect of profit coming in. Now, how then do people shift their mind to not first think about profit every time they engage? And it's for it to be kingdom.
Now, because in kingdom we understand. Kingdom is an exact science. If the word says the workman is worthy of his wages, it doesn't matter if you are Laban. The workman is worthy of his wages. In other words, in the kingdom, the workman's focus is never wages. Wages is a guaranteed outcome.
Interesting.
It is so guaranteed you don't focus on it. It is like saying, if you were working for the most profitable company, and they gave you an opportunity to come and do something, do you realize because of the reputation of the company, you will not query what your pay is? You are confident whatever they'll give you is the best. Your focus is to do what? What you were called to do. Now in the kingdom, when you do that, listen, when Joseph was bringing a solution, he didn't sit down and give Pharaoh a proposal and an invoice.
He did it. And I think it is important to not just view profit in terms of money.
No. He didn't come up with that. But what was the outcome? He became number 2 in government. Whatever invoice you would have given would have been peanuts. Irrelevant. Do you see the difference? When Daniel gave a solution, his position changed. He was placed above.
Yeah.
So the workman is worthy of his wages.
And worthy in this case does not necessarily mean it only affects you.
Yes.
It also has impact even in
everybody.
People, exactly.
Exactly.
If you look at Daniel, if you look at Joseph,
Yes.
all those they affected even generations, they affected
Exactly.
nations, they affected their own nation.
Yes.
I mean, people benefited out of them being well.
Listen, Joseph sat in a place where he could give his brothers grain and return their money.
Oh yeah.
It's called profit.
Oh yes.
It's called being with. See the three principles.
Yes.
Position, profit, and privilege. Those are the true dynamics of kingdom power.
Oh yeah. An impact.
When you say you have power in the kingdom, those are the outcomes of it.
That's right.
You see, and everything there is benevolent. It changes people. You see, as we talked about constitutions, constitutions of men are made because of bad people.
Oh yeah.
Can we understand?
Yes, yes.
They are
It's
made.
a reaction.
It's a reaction to bad people.
Yes.
The kingdom constitution is made for good people.
Yes, yes.
Notice the instructions have to do with doing good, with being a benefit,
Right.
with loving others. That's where the rules are. So when you understand that, and that's why we say when you operate from the Spirit of God, because you said in Him is the Spirit of God.
Yes.
That means there is no way your abilities, characters, and your skills can be executed in bad. It is executed naturally for good.
Right.
I think what I hear you saying is this, because Richard a while ago talked about the ideal position where sons are supposed to operate at full throttle.
Yes.
And now we are here where we are trying to achieve that, but not yet there.
Yes.
Where we are trying to, because as you always say, no one comes from a vacuum.
Yeah.
We all come from somewhere.
Yes.
And we are all moving forward
Yes.
to perfection.
Yes.
Now the question that comes to mind is, or the thought that comes to mind is this.
Yes.
At a micro level, one of the biggest problems we have is that we have learned to operate enterprises. I mean, not talking about the issue of profit, from the perspective of Babylon, because Babylon operates with fear, right? Not by faith.
Right.
So whenever they put in capital at a huge level or a small level, they are not sure, they're not guaranteed of profit because there's no prophetic word in it, there's no God in it.
Right.
So for them, they will now use that in the future to judge future businesses. They will use history.
Yeah.
So as a son, we should come to a place whereby we use our prophetic insight to judge where we want to go next.
Yes.
Which now makes us relevant even in Babylon. Because that is exactly what they lack.
Yes. You see, as we engage Babylon, and I think this is very important, Babylon is not our enemy.
Yes.
The people who are caught in Babylon are not our enemies.
Yes.
They are captured.
Yes.
We bring liberation.
Exactly.
So when you bring liberation, you're not coming to fight.
Yes.
You're coming to solve.
Yes.
You're coming to change.
Oh,
You're coming to transform. There's nothing Daniel did that jeopardized Babylon.
In fact, they didn't view him as a threat.
At all. They saw him
they
as... And what was the most important thing to me, the most important line in the book of Daniel is the statement, no other God to be worshipped but the God of Daniel. They didn't even have a description for him.
Yes. Yes.
The God of Daniel. Daniel is the template.
Yeah.
And they didn't talk to they didn't say this about a priest. They said this about a person who was functional because he was practical in turning around a nation.
Yes.
So this is what determines how we step in. So what is the issue? The other day we shared when Paul wrote in Corinthians, when he spoke about trading, the ox that treads the grain, then he said, we have not exercised this right. He was explaining a simple concept. He said, we do not demand the right, but we do the work. So because we do the work, it is automatic. In other words, I don't need to demand the right. In other words, I don't show up as a minister and say, before you tell me about honorarium, I'm not preaching. No, I never ask you.
Yes.
I preach, I go. It's up to you.
Yes.
I have my right, and God has sources beyond sources.
Okay.
So again going around and beginning to try to tell people to do it, again is missing the point. Now, in the same way in the workplace, in the workplace, if you go always bothered by how much you're being paid, that is the beginning of decline of creativity.
Oh yeah, true.
Because you've already reduced. Yes. See, Babylon has got what is called a pay scale.
Yes.
And that pay scale was never designed for you.
It was designed for them.
It was designed for them. It was designed for the organization to grow, not for you.
Yes.
So if you look at the pay scale, you miss the point. Yes. But if you look at the opportunity and you grow, they will adjust the pay scale themselves.
Without even asking you.
You don't need to make that demand, and it doesn't matter if it's on paper or not. Yes. This is the power of the kingdom. Right. That when Daniel was showing up, when Joseph was showing up, there was no opening, there was no position. There was nothing advertised.
Right. You know, there is a scripture that is coming to mind as you say that.
Yes.
And I think it was Jesus who gave that advice. He said that now if somebody forces you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles.
Yes.
Already you break the power that he tries to, that dominance over him. That, you know, you're not trying to force me.
Yes.
No, I am doing it willingly.
Yes.
And that's the same thing when it comes even to the workplace. That you don't always have to do what is already put on paper for you.
Yes.
Your job description. You can't go beyond that.
Exactly.
And then when we say that we are talking about the kingdom sons, we go beyond job description.
Let me tell you how powerful that statement was. Because there's a time, I like going into those kind of things and finding out why would Jesus make such a statement. Why was this such a common statement he made that when a soldier tells you to carry his coat, he's talking about a Roman soldier, we should carry it 2 miles. What was he saying? So I actually went to research and I discovered there was a law. The Romans could make you carry his coat, and I hope you know his coat was not a designer.
No, it was made of iron.
Exactly, it was his armor.
That's why you're carrying it for him anyway.
Yes. There was a law that he could make you carry it for 1 mile, but it was illegal to go beyond 1 mile in the law.
All right.
Okay. So Jesus was saying, I know it is legal for him to tell you to do that. Go beyond legal. Because in the 2nd mile, you've changed the conversation.
Oh yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
In the 1st mile, you're under law. You have to do this. Yes. In the 2nd mile, you've just changed your relationship with the soldier.
Oh yeah.
You're no longer under law.
No.
You're now under choice. Under choice, you've disarmed everything that he is.
Very true.
That's true.
Do you see how powerful that concept is? Yes. So that's exactly the same principle. That there are things we do because we have to. Can we stop? In kingdom, we don't do things because there's a line.
It actually blocks creativity.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we go beyond. And that's why Paul talks about abounding to every good work. You went beyond. That is a characteristic of the kingdom.
Oh yeah.
So if they're expecting me just to solve this, I'll find out even why did we have the problem in the first
place. And that increases even productivity.
Exactly.
Because there is no way you will be relevant at that point.
That's it.
I mean, you always be indispensable.
Exactly.
You know.
In fact, that's the word.
Yes.
What we must learn to become is indispensable.
Right.
Let me use the term, one of the pictures that we all know. We know that Jesus said we are the salt of the earth. We all know salt is invisible. All right? Now let's even go to a dinner table. Which is the smallest unit of the table?
It is salt.
Which is the one everyone is asking for?
Which is the same salt.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
It has positioned itself
in such a way that even if you don't see it,
you will ask for it.
In other words, there's a part of your meal that doesn't feel right until salt shows up.
Okay. Now that brings me now to something else. A thought is coming into my mind. Now, coming from a certain place where we've always said, you know what, we need to take over. In other words, we got to have numbers for our impact and our influence to be felt. Now look at salt. It's a very tiny thing. Yet, if you look at the amount of food on the table and the amount of salt that is required, it is very little. Now, does that mean that we don't need to be?
Let me first of all say there is no instruction in the Bible to take over.
Okay. All right.
That's our own. We borrowed from Babylon. That is reverse racism.
Okay.
They did this to us. Let's do this to them.
To them.
God has nowhere told us to take over. God told us to make them like us. That is not taking over. That is them, and the way we do it is that they desire it.
You perfect your system
so well that they want it. So when we do that, they become part of this. They want what we have. Taking over is subjugation.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
When Jesus gave the term occupy till I come, he wasn't talking about displacing people. He was talking about displacing systems.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
Because the principle is this. It means become the prevailing environment till I come.
Yes.
Be the main issue
Yes.
till I come.
Yes.
Be the same structure that everybody now operates with until I come.
Yes.
But it is not a matter of come, because then suddenly we are introducing slavery.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the prophetic scriptures,
Yes.
especially from the book of Isaiah,
Yes.
where he spoke about that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be chief among the mountains.
Yes.
Now, a few verses down there, it says that they will come and tell you,
Yes.
let us go
Yes.
to the mountain of the Lord's
Yes.
house.
Yes.
And he will show us his ways.
Yes.
And therefore, it is them that are telling you,
Yes,
let us
show
go.
us.
They have seen something that
Exactly.
they like and they want.
And it says so clearly, all nations will flow
Yes.
into it.
Right.
It is their own movement, it is
Yes.
not ours.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They are the ones making the thing. And do you know, to flow to a mountain takes energy.
Oh yeah,
You're climbing, it's not downhill.
Yes.
You're choosing to arise in that direction.
That's correct.
So if we understand that, it means that as we go into this space, listen guys, we are living in the most, in the time in the earth where sons of God are needed the most. In other words, everything is set. We are in Isaiah 60.
Yes.
It is set. Gross darkness covers the earth. Arise and shine, for your light has come. In the same instant,
Yes.
two realities.
Oh yeah.
Because light would have no relevance in light.
And I think we've not been in our lifetime where even the world acknowledges it is dark.
Yes.
You know, a time before COVID, people would play around because there were options.
Yeah.
I could get loan from a bank, I could talk to friends. But after post-COVID, you realize that all doors are shut. Systems that you thought you'd rely on have shut down.
Yeah.
Friends who you thought could hold you are also helpless.
Yes.
So this is the time where sons are required.
Yes.
Because it's now evident that darkness is gross, and any little spark of light makes sense to even, the lost.
So, talking of that, the situation, imagine how many people have to work from home.
Yeah.
Okay? If you have no character,
Yes.
Then you won't be working. You'll be doing your own things.
that's the point. You
Yes.
see how valuable character has become.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why they say no. Nowadays there are all these things: self-driven, self this, self that, can manage, can handle crisis, can. They're describing sons of God.
Very true. Very true.
That's our description.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just thinking, there's a scripture coming into my mind. I think the book of Revelation,
Yes.
when it talks about Babylon,
Yes.
and it's coming because we've spoken about issues of occupation, where we said we've not been called to dominate, we've not been called to can't remember the exact word
Yes.
I used, in order to take over. Yes, that's the
Yes.
one. And it says that it's talking about the sons, the sons of God being told to pay Babylon and pay her double.
Yes.
Pay her double for the very things that he did for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to now reconcile the issue of we not being called to dominate, and here is an instruction. How does
You
that?
know what is interesting?
Yes.
Let me ask a question from the kingdom.
Yeah.
When you can only give what you have,
Yeah.
Yes.
so if you're being told to pay double to somebody who offended you from the kingdom, what are you being told?
You have. Yes, you have.
What do you have
Yeah.
to pay someone who offended you? Since you're from the kingdom,
Yes.
what is our currency? What do we carry?
It is love.
So give them what?
Love. Double.
We have no other product.
Yeah.
We cannot use the Babylonian products.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is no way we can trade with the same model.
Listen, I mean, the way we have misused scriptures,
Interesting.
the way we have allowed
Interesting.
wrong perspective to culture our mind.
Yes.
Where we always thought that
Yes.
when it talks about paying double,
Yes.
it is where you know what
God is
you
revenging.
gave me frustration.
Yes.
I'm going to
I
give you
give you
frustration
double frustration.
double.
Where are we getting frustration from? We don't manufacture that.
Yes.
It's not our product.
No.
Yes.
Let me take a famous scripture
Yeah.
that has been used that way. Sadly, churches have used this to really lose people they should have kept.
Right.
Okay? It talks about when your brother offends you.
Yeah.
Right? It starts very interestingly. And if you have time, go read the whole sequence. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take it in high speed, but it has a sequence. It starts by saying, when your brother offends you, attempt to be reconciled with him.
Okay.
Now let's understand that term. Who was offended?
Your brother.
Who is to reconcile?
You.
Is that correct?
No.
It doesn't make sense because
According
the first question that
Babylon
somebody
itself.
would ask is, I'm not the one who
Thank
started the
you.
whole thing.
And you have
Why should I be the one?
every right to
Yes.
ask that question.
That's
Yes.
Yeah.
But who is being asked to reconcile?
You who has been
you.
offended.
Does that make sense?
It doesn't.
So first of all, if we miss that point, we've missed the whole story.
True.
It says if he doesn't agree to what?
To reconciling with you who was offended.
What did we think if he doesn't agree to what?
Wow.
Very
Wow.
interesting.
If he doesn't agree to reconcile, find another brother
Yes.
who will help him understand.
Yes.
Can you see where the onus is?
Oh, yeah.
That sounds very strange.
All right?
Yeah.
So, not find another one whom you can accuse him with.
No.
Sounds
To
very
go and
strange.
reconcile.
Yes.
Yeah.
If he refuses, bring it before the community. What are we trying to do all along? To preserve a brother, not to show him how wrong he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, God has given us no watchman mandate. When people do wrong, we have no jurisdiction. It is a choice they have made. We can only point out and say, listen, I was offended. In fact, this should be our position.
Yeah.
I was offended by what you did, but I forgive you. That's reconciliation.
Mm.
I'm not angry because of what you did. I don't understand what you did,
Yes.
but I don't want us to lose this relationship.
You know what you're saying is so powerful. Because when you bring it closer home,
Yes.
to us who have teenagers,
Yes.
you realize that it's very easy to bring up your children, bashing them.
Yes.
And there is every reason why you should.
Of course.
Because sometimes they do the wrong things.
Yes.
But the question is, the more you bash him,
Yes.
are you pushing him away
Yes.
to be taught more by the world, or are you pushing him closer so that he can learn about the kingdom?
Yes.
In fact, that now that you're talking about that, the issue of compassion that we spoke about last
Back
time
to
comes in.
EQ.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You can't apply, you apply it everywhere.
You
Right.
apply it everywhere.
Yeah.
So then what happens, the Bible then says, but if he refuses to hear, the community treat him like an unbeliever. Let me ask you,
Interesting.
how does the kingdom treat unbelievers?
That's a good question
Yeah,
because
it doesn't mean you fight him again.
no, George. I mean,
Think
the thing
carefully.
is,
Jesus is the one speaking.
the thing is, we've always viewed that
Yes.
as like
Excommunicated.
excommunicating. Don't
That
talk
thing
to
is
him.
not in
Yeah.
the Bible.
You know.
Yeah, you see, it automatically comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do with him.
Yes. So what have we done in the past? Instead of forgiving people, we have embarrassed them and put them on the front.
Oh, yeah.
Public. Instead of treating them like an unbeliever, what is our primary call? For God so loved?
The world.
How do we treat unbelievers?
We love them.
Jesus is giving you the ultimate.
Yeah.
That shifts the whole
Oh yeah.
environment.
His character cannot
telling you.
change. Listen, why would Jesus bother to teach a whole process on someone who just offended you? They didn't kill anybody.
Yes.
No.
So you want to excommunicate someone for offending you?
Very interesting.
Really? Is that what he's teaching?
No.
Is that his gospel? Then there's a problem with him standing on the cross and saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not
What they are doing.
His character is consistent. It never changes.
Oh, yeah. So what we are saying is that the issue of treat him like an unbeliever.
Yes.
It means treat him with love.
Yes, treat him as one
Yes.
who doesn't understand.
Yes.
Because if Jesus tells you treat him like an unbeliever, what was his example? What was he accused of? He was always eating with who?
Yeah.
With
The
unbelievers.
unbelievers.
So what is he teaching you? How does he treat them?
Mm.
So can you treat them different than he treats them?
No, can't.
Do you see how we can take our
Yes.
own
Interpretation.
Yes.
and then take our own prejudices and our own anger, then look for a scripture that we think says what we say. We think. We didn't prove it says that.
Yeah.
You get the difference?
Right. There's something you said, the issue of compassion, and I think compassion does not maintain a negative situation, but seeks to end it.
Simple.
And that is now what we are saying, the components we spoke about last time, one of them being compassion.
Exactly.
That it seeks to end something.
So how do you end that discussion we just had? Who is offended?
It is you who is offended.
So how do you end it?
You just end it by just treating him with love.
And by releasing it.
And releasing. Releasing people from guilt. Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have a problem with Jesus' other parable on forgiveness.
Yes.
I mean,
they're not agreeing with this explanation.
I mean, think it's not just about Jesus himself. I mean, think even of Stephen. You can say, oh no, Jesus was Jesus.
Yes.
Now, this was Stephen.
Exactly.
The guy is being stoned
Yes.
to death.
Yes.
And even as he is being stoned and he knows he's dying,
Yes.
he tells God, forgive these guys.
Exactly.
I treat them as though they don't know what they are doing.
Yes.
And that was it. And he died.
There you go.
That's a good example.
So we need to understand in the context in which Scripture, in other words, that's why I said the spirit of the law. Once you know God, there's no way His Spirit can come in you and teach you how to excommunicate people.
Wow.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
That's not His Spirit.
Yes.
Because when the Spirit comes upon you, you have the gift of the Spirit. The fruit is love.
Yeah.
How can the fruit of love? They said, the Bible says, for we know that perfect love casts out fear. Because fear comes with condemnation. There's a problem with our thinking.
So does that mean then that because there's somebody who may argue and say, you know what, when you talk just about loving people, it means I'm condoning what they're doing, or I'm accepting, or just being tolerant with what they're doing.
Or what is tough love? There's what they call tough love.
Okay. So let's agree. Love is love. Okay? Now, when you start talking about tough love and condemn, no. We're talking about love is not foolishness.
All right.
Okay.
Let's carry on from
yes.
Yes.
Love is not foolishness.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that if you keep doing wrong things, I can't correct you. The same scripture allows me to correct you. But let me explain the context of correction.
Yes.
Correction is limited to jurisdiction.
What does that mean?
Let's take Babylon now as an example, a bad one.
Yeah.
If you live in a particular, like in Kenya or in the States, if you live in a different country or a different county or a different state, police don't have jurisdiction in that state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So sometimes if you call for help, you're told, no, call the police from
your state.
From your state.
Yes.
Even though we all uphold the law.
Yeah.
We don't deal with cases.
Yeah.
From
outside our jurisdiction.
Church, stop handling cases that don't belong to you. Let me explain. What is my first primary jurisdiction is my house and my children, my family.
Yes.
Within that jurisdiction, there are levels.
Yes.
In the kingdom, my jurisdiction with my wife has got to do with advice, not control.
Yeah.
This even within that jurisdiction, there are still hierarchies.
Yes.
There are things I can say, even though I have rulership, there is a way I extend it at that level.
Yes.
At certain ages of my children, there are seasons when my correction is unquestionable. I know better.
Yeah.
Period.
Because I said so.
Yes, at that level, and that is correct. Foolishness is taking that to the church and deciding I'm going to correct you because I'm the pastor and that is final. Wrong jurisdiction. Right?
Yeah.
Now I'll explain. So within this jurisdiction, there's a way I carry my family, and within that family, there are certain ways in which that does not change love. Love has nothing to do with correction in the context of something has been done wrong. We're not debating my love for the person. Because we're not dealing with the person, we're dealing with the issue. Okay? So, when my son does wrong, I deal with the wrong, not with my son.
Okay.
Separate the two. If you connect the two, you have a problem. You see, in the African context, you and the problem are the same thing.
Yeah, the wrong is in the son.
The son is the wrong and the wrong is the son. And the son being wrong equals embarrassing the father. So all that combined in your punishment.
It's actually about you.
Yeah.
You see the problem?
It's not about the son.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the kingdom, there is the wrong and there is the son.
Yeah.
All right? When you correct the wrong, do not interfere with the love.
Okay.
See, we grew up where punishment was emotional and angry.
Yeah.
Not where punishment was rational and fitted the fixing. See, again, we're not dealing with punishment as in crime. We're dealing in the kingdom, we're dealing with correction.
Yeah.
So correction means you were given this environment, you violated.
Yes.
When you violated this, you are grounded. In the grounding, we talk and we laugh.
I don't withhold
In the
anything.
grounding, we are not enemies. I'm not
Yes.
talking to you.
Yes.
That is foolishness.
Yeah.
In the grounding, we are laughing, we are joking, but you're not leaving that door.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not changed the parameter of adjustment,
Yes.
but I have remained as your parent,
Yes.
and I love you the same. See, many of us were brought up where punishment equals no food.
Yes.
No. So you've combined those issues,
Yes.
and now you connect them together.
Yeah.
They are not connected. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I say love is not foolishness.
Right.
So there is a place where you can adjust someone and they know you love them to a level over time that they even accept the correction. And they are okay because they realized I messed up.
Oh, yeah.
And they grow.
Yes.
Otherwise, the other correction
Yes.
brings defiance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It brings defiance.
In fact, I think the reason why it brings defiance is
Yes.
because the person probably being corrected does not consider you the person who should correct it.
Exactly.
And that not even applies even within the church environment
Yes.
or within other jurisdictions,
Yes.
where you find that now you want to assert your authority
Yes.
and you want to correct,
Yes.
but the person you're correcting does not consider you
Yes.
as part of the part of the people that should correct them. That
And,
produces.
and now this is the issue.
Yes.
That's very important. You talked about they don't consider you having the authority.
Yeah.
We also have to learn to separate ourselves from the authority. In other words, my position as your parent has given me a certain authority,
Yes.
but the authority is not me.
Mm.
The authority is that position called parent.
Okay. Okay.
And that position is right or wrong whether you like me or not. You get the separation?
Yes.
Exactly.
It is a principle, and that's what we're told to bring up our children in the way they should go. So when I'm correcting them, I'm giving them a biblical principle, not what offended me,
Exactly.
not what I'm
So-
angry about.
So if you do this elsewhere,
it is still wrong.
it is still wrong. It's not because you wronged me.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This is wrong.
Many of us grew up with the wrong teaching that
Yeah.
said, as long as you're in my house.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which means when you leave my house,
Yeah, you can do what you want.
you see the problem?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
No. For you to make it in life, you never do this.
And indeed,
Irrelevant where you are.
indeed,
When people left,
when they left,
chaos.
It
did what they
chaos,
wanted.
I'm telling
Exactly.
you.
So that's the same thing. Even in a kingdom community, even in our own community where we are leaders, we correct because people have accepted to be corrected, not because we are the leaders.
Oh, yeah.
Listen carefully. There are two rules. One rule is if you're going to be part of what we are, there are things we stand for.
yes,
If you violate those things, we will query you because probably you are ignorant or you don't want them. If you don't want them, we will not be angry with you, but we will clearly state within this environment you cannot function.
Yeah.
So where you are comfortable, please function there.
yes.
But if you're here and you've agreed, we'll do it. Even when we want to correct people, we usually make sure it is people who trust us,
Yeah.
people who know we care about them,
Yes.
people who know we love them,
Yes.
and therefore we are able to then navigate very sensitive things because love has been established.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Once love has been established, you can navigate anything. Do not be that person who you think you are prophetic or you think you have discipline or you have power because you tell off everybody. No, telling off people changed nothing, and you left there thinking you are something,
Oh, yeah.
and actually you diminished in their eyes.
Yes.
So the most important thing is to accept discipline must always come, and that's why the scripture is clear. The Father disciplines those whom He.
He loves.
We focus on the discipline. We are missing the point.
The picture is a love.
That tells you the discipline is born out of love.
Love.
It's not the other way around. The love will determine the parameter of the discipline. In other words, the love knows what will work best.
Right.
And I think we are all God's creation.
Yes.
And we all have an element of God in us.
Yes.
So whether you're a believer or not,
Yes.
there's an element of God in you.
Yes.
So if you're corrected with love,
Yes.
you will know.
Yeah.
And you will change.
Oh, that's true.
If you're corrected because I feel I'm emotional and you offended me, the person will be defiant.
Yes.
Because there isn't any principle of love in that correction.
Exactly.
That's true.
And the thing is, always, please, I've discovered something that do not correct somebody who doesn't trust you.
Exactly.
And do not correct anybody who you don't think the best for.
Exactly.
Wow.
If my intent for them is not right, if I am angry and offended with them, stay out of that correction. It's already tainted. It's already biased.
Yes.
You only correct people that you really surely believe. I can work with this person, I can help them, I can journey with them.
Because correction is not a one-sitting
Scenario. No, it's an adjustment.
This is an adjustment that may take more than a day.
Yes.
A month.
It's a relationship.
So it's something that you have to work together.
Right.
Yes.
So if I'm not ready for the journey, don't start it.
That's the idea.
That's right.
Don't feel that you have to police everybody. And all of you who get onto social media to correct everybody, stop it.
Exactly.
You only correct people you have a relationship with. And then you must be in a place where your correction can be taken because you yourself are a model who can give correction. That's the big
especially in this day of an age where everybody says anything on social media, where you find you always have these people, or maybe I say myself, I'm always correcting something that is wrong within chat circles or within other environments. You should not do this, and you not do that, and all that. And sometimes I usually wonder, okay, what impact will that have? And there's always this belief that I'm trying to correct someone somewhere, just because I've said it.
If you feel you have a correction, we just give you the pattern in this program. First, call the brother, sit with them. Don't start there. Don't start by going around pointing out they did this, they did that, they are this wicked. You know nothing about them.
Right.
You don't know the scenario they're in, you don't know the environment, and again, you don't even know they're wronged. Who were you speaking on behalf of? You get, so many people are just posturing in these days to trend. Just posturing for numbers and comments and likes. Listen, there's a lot more you could do with your energy and your time. So guys, we've come to that place, of course, where we just closing thoughts, so we can. This is a conversation that can't stop here. It continues, it grows as we go along.
That's right.
Yes.
I think for me, I'm just looking at the way the contrast that is there, especially between kingdom and what is we've always been used to. And there is almost a feeling that there is a call for us to adjust. Adjust to what is kingdom so that we can have a greater impact. Because we've been in this place where we always, even the way we concoct things and even shift scriptures to fit our narrative, where now that has to come to an end and really embrace what is of the kingdom, that which is correct, so that we can be able to do what God expects us to do at this point. So when you talk about issues of discipline, when you talk about issues of how we view others, then that becomes very important. For me, that is a major shift. And I think there are certain scriptures that I have had right now or today that really shifted my mentality. I've not always viewed them that way, and especially when it comes to issues of dealing with people who have offended me, that it is in my jurisdiction or my right to respond to them, not necessarily sit there and wait for them to come to me. It is me who has to go to them. That is very powerful for me. Yes.
Interesting. Yes. Interesting. Well, for me, a lot of thoughts are running through my mind, and this is a continuous process that we go through. And for me, I've come to this realization that I've gone in too deep into kingdom to even think any other way that we can turn back. And to anybody watching us, viewing this, we must understand that we are chosen, right? Yeah. We did not choose ourselves. Right. We are chosen. And God grants us the grace. And at a micro level, I have a personal responsibility to ensure that I first of all change the environment where I am in. Yes. Because everything that we are learning massive things, and we're learning a lot of things that mess around with our minds and mess around with everything that we think. Because even within our jurisdiction of kingdom, there is so many wrong. So we are learning to learn. And as these new words come in and these new environments come in, let us start by adjusting our very environment where we are. Because whenever we consider the kingdom is out there, we don't change anything. Because when I think that I'll have to wait until the day I'll impact the president or impact another city, I will never change. Change starts from within me,
right?
Then within my small jurisdiction. Then as I have impact there, it gives me the grace to now expand my boundary. And within a short while, you realize that you're impacting a bigger environment than you're supposed to.
Yes. That's right.
But first manage it within yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people, remember we are talking about the worker and the quality of the worker. Everything we have said today applies in your workplace. Even the issue of somebody offended you, because workplace is the #1 offense.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes.
So if you apply this rule, you will be shocked at how the environment shifts suddenly.
Yes.
So remember the core thoughts we said. Your character carries you. Your skill will only go as far as your character will carry you.
Yeah.
So the more you build your character, the stronger it will be. Now, how is character really grown? Every crisis or offense or scenario you've gone through is either going to kill your EQ or grow it. So how you respond determines growth or limitation.
Right.
If you leave a place bitter instead of better, there is a scenario you need to adjust. That's the key to this. This is going to be so important. The reason we put character first before we spoke about skill is because skill can be enhanced, learned, grown. But listen, even without character, you can't sharpen skill. You won't spend enough time sharpening your skill. You won't determine that this is important. So these are the key tools that will help us navigate where we're going.
Right.
And this is where we say, keep it kingdom,
Keep it pure.